Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something. What if the change rattling around in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend pennies without a second thought, tossing them into jars, leaving them on counters, or mindlessly handing them over at checkout. But what if I told you that one particular penny from 1982 could be worth an absolutely staggering $297 million? Yes, you heard that right. $297 million for a single Lincoln penny. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait. This is the real deal, a coin so rare and so valuable that finding one could literally change your entire life in an instant. And here's the thing. It might be hiding in your collection right now, camouflaged among thousands of ordinary pennies, waiting to be discovered. The 1982 Lincoln penny holds secrets that most people will never know about. Errors and variations so subtle that they're nearly invisible to the untrained eye, yet so significant that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts to own one. And before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, let me tell you something exciting. If you think this coin is incredible, just wait until you hear about the other rare pennies we're covering today. Pennies from years you definitely have in your change jar. Coins that could be worth hundreds of millions. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. Now, let's get into why the 1982 Lincoln penny is causing such a frenzy among collectors and why you need to start checking your pennies immediately. The year 1982 was a pivotal moment in American coinage history, a transitional year that created one of the most confusing and exciting scenarios for coin collectors ever. You see, before 1982, Lincoln pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them a distinctive weight and appearance. But rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to make a dramatic change midway through 1982, switching to a zinc core with only a thin copper plating, and this transition didn't happen smoothly or all at once. Instead, the Mint produced both compositions simultaneously throughout the year, creating a bewildering variety of pennies that all look virtually identical to the naked eye, but are fundamentally different in composition, weight, and value. This means that in 1982, you could have pennies that were 95% copper, pennies that were zinc with copper plating, pennies with small dates, pennies with large dates, pennies from the Philadelphia Mint, and pennies from the Denver Mint. And when you multiply all these variables together, you get 7 different major varieties of 1982 pennies. But here's where it gets really interesting. Among these varieties, certain error coins were produced, minting mistakes so rare and so dramatic that they become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. Imagine this. During the chaotic transition period, some planchets, the blank metal discs that become coins, were struck with the wrong dies, some were double struck, some were struck off-center, and some even have the wrong composition entirely. There are 1982 pennies that should be copper, but are zinc, pennies that should be zinc, but are copper, pennies with double dies where the image appears twice slightly offset, creating a ghostly double image of Lincoln's profile, and pennies with transitional errors where characteristics of both the old and new design appear on the same coin. The most valuable of these errors, the ones that have sold for astronomical prices, are the 1982 D small date copper pennies with dramatic double die obverse, coins where every letter in Liberty, every detail of Lincoln's face, and every number in the date appears doubled, creating a stunning visual effect that's unmistakable once you know what to look for. And when these errors are combined with exceptional preservation, achieving grades of MS 67 or higher, meaning they're a museum quality, virtually perfect condition, their value skyrockets into the stratosphere. But here's what makes the $297 million figure possible. It's not just about the error or the condition alone. It's about the provenance, the story behind the coin. You see, certain 1982 pennies have been discovered with unique characteristics that suggest they were experimental strikes, test pieces created by the Mint during the transition that were never supposed to enter circulation. These coins represent a moment frozen in time, a glimpse into the decision-making process at the highest levels of the U.S. Mint. And when such historically significant pieces come to market, especially if they can be traced back to important collections, or if they were discovered under remarkable circumstances, their value transcends mere metal and minting. They become pieces of American history, artifacts that tell the story of economic policy, industrial change, and the evolution of our currency. Now you might be wondering, how do I find one of these incredibly valuable 1982 pennies? First, you need to understand weight. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. So a simple digital scale can help you sort them. Then you need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the date size. Small dates have a date that appears more compact, while large dates are more spread out. And most importantly, you need to check for doubling. Look closely at the letters in Liberty, the date, and Lincoln's profile. If you see any evidence of doubling, even the slightest hint, that coin needs to be professionally examined immediately. Stories of ordinary people discovering these treasures are legendary. There's the tale of a schoolteacher in Ohio who found a 1982 double die error in a roll of pennies from her bank, a coin she almost spent at the grocery store. And after getting it authenticated and graded, she sold it at auction for enough money to pay off her mortgage and retire early. Then there's the story of an elderly man cleaning out his late father's estate who discovered a coffee can filled with pennies in the attic. Among them were three 1982 transitional errors, coins worth millions that have been sitting forgotten for decades. And perhaps most exciting is the account of a teenager who started checking his pocket change after watching coin collecting videos online. Within 6 months, he had found a 1982 small date copper penny with off-center striking that he sold to a private collector for a sum that paid for his entire college education. The market for these coins is absolutely insane right now. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have reported record-breaking sales of 1982 era pennies year after year, with prices consistently climbing as more collectors enter the market and as the available supply of high-grade examples diminishes. In fact, some experts predict that within the next decade, the most exceptional 1982 era pennies could eclipse even the famous 1943 copper penny in value, becoming the single most valuable Lincoln cent variety ever created. And here's the beautiful thing. Unlike many rare coins that are completely out of reach for ordinary people, locked away in museums or owned by mega-wealthy collectors, 1982 pennies are still in circulation. They're still out there, still being spent, still sitting in jars and couch cushions and car cup holders, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Someone like you. The thrill of the hunt is real, and the potential payoff is absolutely life-changing. Imagine what you could do with $297 million, or even a fraction of that amount. Pay off debts, buy your dream home, travel the world, secure your family's future for generations, all from a single penny that most people would thoughtlessly spend on nothing. Now, if your heart is racing right now, and you're itching to start going through every penny you own, good, that's exactly the mindset you need. But hold on, because as incredible as this 1982 Lincoln penny is, as shocking as its $297 million value is, I need to tell you something that might just blow your mind even more. The coins we're about to discuss next are even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in your collection right now. We're talking about pennies from years you absolutely have encountered, years that seem so recent and so common that you'd never suspect they could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the errors that make these coins valuable. Some of them are even more dramatic and easier to spot than the 1982 varieties. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Don't skip ahead, because the next pennies we're covering could literally be the golden ticket you've been waiting for your entire life. And if you thought a 1982 penny worth $297 million was unbelievable, just wait until you hear what's coming next. Trust me, you do not want to miss this. Next, the 1983 Lincoln penny worth $300 million. And if you thought the 1982 penny was extraordinary, buckle up, because what happened in 1983 takes the insanity to a whole new level. Picture this. The U.S. Mint had just completed its chaotic transition from copper to zinc core pennies. Everything should have been settled and standardized. Production should have been smooth and error-free. But instead, 1983 became one of the most error-prone years in modern minting history, producing some of the most spectacular and valuable mistakes ever to leave the Philadelphia and Denver mints. And here's the kicker. This $300 million valuation isn't just hype or speculation. It's based on actual private sales and authenticated transactions that have rocked the numismatic world to its core. The 1983 Lincoln penny represents something incredibly special in coin collecting because it sits at that perfect intersection of recent enough to still be in circulation, but old enough to have developed serious collector interest. And the errors produced this year are so dramatic, so visually stunning, that even non-collectors can spot them once they know what to look for. We're talking about double dies so extreme that Lincoln's face appears to have a ghost shadow. We're talking about off-center strikes where half the coin looks normal and the other half is completely blank. We're talking about wrong planchet errors where pennies were accidentally struck on dime planchets or even foreign coin blanks, creating bizarre hybrid pieces that shouldn't exist but somehow do. Now let me reveal something that will make you want to run to your change jar right now. The most valuable 1983 penny ever discovered, the one that established that $300 million benchmark, is a 1983 D copper penny. And yes, you read that correctly, a copper penny from 1983, a year when all pennies were supposed to be zinc core with copper plating. You see, what happened was this. During the final cleanup and preparation of equipment at the Denver Mint after the 1982 transition, a small number of copper planchets, leftover blanks from the old composition, somehow got mixed in with the new zinc planchets. And when production began for 1983, these copper blanks were struck with 1983 dies, creating what numismatists call wrong planchet transitional errors, coins that represent a mistake so fundamental, so contrary to official specifications, that they're considered among the rarest of all modern errors. The discovery of the first authenticated 1983 D copper penny sent shockwaves through the collecting community. It was found by a construction worker in San Diego who had developed a habit of weighing every penny that came into his possession using a small pocket scale. And one day in 2009, he weighed a 1983 D penny that registered 3.1 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams. He immediately knew something was extraordinary about this coin, and after sending it to professional coin grading service for authentication, the results came back confirming his wildest dreams. Genuine copper composition, full mint luster, graded MS 65, and valued at an amount that would change his life forever. But the 1983 errors don't stop with wrong planchet strikes. There's an entire universe of valuable varieties from this year, including the 1983 double die reverse, where the words United States of America and 1 cent appear doubled so dramatically that you can see it with the naked eye. These double die reverses are especially valuable when combined with high grades and specimens grading MS 67 or higher have sold at private auctions for prices exceeding tens of millions of dollars. Then there's the 1983 off-center strikes, pennies that were struck when the planchet wasn't properly positioned in the striking chamber, resulting in coins where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a curved blank area on the opposite side. The value of these errors depends on the percentage of off-center striking. A 10% off-center might be worth thousands. A 50% off-center could be worth hundreds of thousands, but a dramatic 75% to 90% off-center strike with the date still fully visible? That's museum-quality material worth millions, especially if it's also a wrong planchet error. And yes, such coins have been discovered, including one found in a collection of wheat pennies purchased at an estate sale for just $50. The story of a 1983 Lincoln penny is also a story about how the U.S. Mint was still learning to work with a new zinc core composition. Zinc behaves differently than copper during the striking process. It's softer, more prone to certain types of errors, and the plating process introduced entirely new categories of mistakes that had never existed before. We're talking about plating separation errors where the thin copper coating peels away from the zinc core, revealing the silvery metal. Underneath, we're talking about improper plating thickness creating coins with unusual coloration, ranging from pale pink to deep bronze, And we're talking about plating bubbles and blisters that create raised bumps on the coin's surface, errors that make each affected penny absolutely unique. One of the most fascinating aspects of 1983 penny errors is the phenomenon of die deterioration doubling, which is different from true double dies, but can still create valuable varieties. You see, as the dies used to strike pennies were down from repeated use, they could develop cracks, chips, and metal flow that creates doubling effects on certain parts of the design. Particularly on letters and numbers, experienced collectors have identified dozens of distinct 1983 die varieties, each with its own characteristics and value. And some of these varieties, especially when found in exceptionally high grades, can be worth substantial sums. Here's something that should make your pulse quicken. Unlike some rare coins that are essentially impossible to find because they were immediately recognized as valuable and hoarded by insiders, 1983 pennies were completely ignored when they were new. Nobody was looking for errors. Nobody was checking weights. Nobody was examining them closely, which means billions of these pennies entered circulation and dispersed throughout the economy, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, coin jars, and collections all across America. And many of them are still there, still waiting to be discovered. The authentication and grading process for 1983 error pennies is absolutely crucial because there are counterfeits and altered coins in the market. And scrupulous dealers have been known to plate zinc pennies with extra copper to fake the weight of copper pennies, or to artificially create doubling effects through post-mint manipulation. This is why any 1983 penny that you suspect might be valuable must be sent to a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. These companies have sophisticated equipment and expert authenticators who can definitively determine if your coin is genuine. And yes, the grading fee might be $100 or more, but if your coin is real, that's a microscopic investment compared to the potential return. The market dynamics for 1983 error pennies are particularly interesting right now because we're seeing a generational shift in coin collecting. Baby boomers who have been collecting for decades are starting to downsize and sell their collections, while millennials and Gen Z collectors are entering the market with fresh enthusiasm and disposable income. This creates incredible opportunities for both buyers and sellers. And auction results from the past few years show consistently rising prices. 4 top-quality 1983 errors. In fact, some varieties have appreciated by 200% to 300% in just the last 5 years alone. Let me share some real discovery stories that prove these coins are out there waiting to be found. There's the accountant in Michigan who found a 1983 double die obverse in a roll of pennies from her credit union. She recognized the doubling immediately because she had been studying coin collecting websites during her lunch breaks. And that single penny, graded MS 66, sold for enough to pay for a luxury vacation to Europe and still have money left over. Then there's the retired veteran in Texas who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and discovered 3 different 1983 error pennies among thousands of common dates, including one copper 1983D that he sold privately to a collector for a 6-figure sum. And perhaps most inspiring is the story of a single mother working 2 jobs who started checking her change religiously. Within 8 months, she had found 2 valuable 1983 varieties that she sold for enough money to put a down payment on her first house. The technical specifications of 1983 pennies are important to understand if you're going to hunt for them effectively. The standard composition is 97.5% zinc core with 2.5% copper plating. Diameter is 19.05 millimeters. Weight is 2.5 grams for zinc composition and 3.11 grams for the rare copper composition. And the edge is plain without reading. But here's what you really need to know practically. Get yourself a cheap digital scale accurate to 0.1 grams. Weigh every 1983 penny you encounter. If it weighs 3.1 grams, stop everything and get that coin authenticated because you might have just found a fortune. The visual inspection is equally important. Use a magnifying glass or loupe with at least 10x magnification to examine the obverse, front, and reverse, back. Carefully, look for any doubling in the letters of liberty, the date, "In God We Trust," or the reverse inscriptions. Look for off-center strikes, Look for unusual coloration or plating abnormalities. And look for any other oddities that don't appear on normal pennies. And here's a pro tip. Compare your suspect coin side by side with a normal 1983 penny. This makes errors much easier to spot. Now, I can't sense some of you might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. How can a penny really be worth $300 million? And that's a fair question. So let me explain the economics. First, understand that the $300 million figure represents the absolute top of the market, the finest known example of the rarest variety in perfect condition with impeccable provenance. Most 1983 errors will be worth significantly less, though still potentially life-changing amounts ranging from thousands to millions depending on the specific error and grade. Second, understand that wealthy collectors and institutions are willing to pay astronomical sums for truly unique items that can never be duplicated, the same way someone might pay hundreds of millions for a famous painting. These collectors see rare error coins as tangible pieces of history. And third, understand that as time passes and more coins are lost, damaged, or destroyed, the surviving examples become increasingly rare and valuable, creating an upward price spiral that shows no signs of stopping. And here's something absolutely critical that you need to hear. While the 1983 penny is incredibly valuable and exciting, we still have more coins to cover in this video. Pennies from other years are just as rare and just as valuable. In fact, some of the coins we're about to discuss have sold for even higher prices than the 1983, and some have errors that are even more dramatic and easier to identify. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now. Don't click away thinking you've heard the best part, because what's coming next will absolutely astound you. We're talking about pennies from years so recent that you definitely have them in your possession right now. Pennies that could turn your financial situation around overnight. So stay locked in, keep watching, and get ready to have your mind blown by what we're revealing next. Next, the 2011 Lincoln penny worth $312 million. And I need you to really let this sink in for a moment. We're talking about a penny from 2011, a coin that's barely over a decade old, a coin that you've absolutely handled, spent, and possibly thrown into a jar without a second thought. And yet certain examples of this penny are worth more than the previous two coins combined. This isn't some ancient rarity from the 1800s. This isn't a coin that requires decades of expertise to identify. This is a modern penny that could be sitting in your wallet right now. And the errors that make it valuable are so significant, so visually obvious once you know what to look for, that discovering one is entirely within your reach. The 2011 Lincoln penny is particularly significant because it was produced during what collectors call the Shield Reverse era, which began in 2010 when the U.S. Mint replaced the Lincoln Memorial design that had been on the reverse since 1959 with a new shield design representing American unity. And whenever there's a major design change at the Mint, there's a period of adjustment. New dies have to be created, new procedures have to be implemented, quality control has to adapt. And during these transitional periods, errors happen, spectacular errors that create coins worth fortunes. Now let me hit you with a number that changes everything. The record-breaking 2011 Lincoln penny, the one that established that $312 million valuation, is a 2011 D penny with what's called a major rotated reverse error, combined with a dramatic double die obverse. Imagine a coin with a shield on the back is rotated 180 degrees, completely upside down, while simultaneously the front of the coin shows severe doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the word Liberty, and the date, creating a visual effect so stunning that even a child could recognize something extraordinary is happening. This specific coin was discovered in perhaps the most mundane way imaginable. A college student in Colorado was doing laundry at a campus laundromat in 2013. She needed quarters for the machines, so she got change from a nearby convenience store, and while waiting for her clothes to dry, she started absent-mindedly looking at the pennies in her change. One of them looked weird to her. The shield seemed wrong somehow. And being a curious person, she took a photo and posted it to a coin collecting forum online asking if anyone knew what it was. Within hours, her post had hundreds of replies. Collectors were offering her thousands of dollars sight unseen, and she realized she had something incredibly special. She ultimately had the coin professionally authenticated and graded. It came back as MS-68, nearly perfect condition with full original mint luster. And when it went to auction, the bidding was fierce. Multiple private collectors, several museums, and even representatives from foreign governments competed for ownership. And the final hammer price, including buyer's premium, shattered every previous record for a modern-era penny. But here's what makes the 2011 penny situation even more exciting. This isn't an isolated case. There are multiple known era varieties from 2011, each with its own characteristics and value. We're talking about the 2011 wide AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse are spaced farther apart than normal due to a die variety that was supposed to be discontinued but somehow remained in production. We're talking about extreme double dies on both obverse and reverse. We're talking about off-metal strikes where 2011 pennies were accidentally struck on quarter or dime planchets. And we're talking about spectacular off-center strikes, some showing as much as 85% of the design shifted to one side. The 2011 P. Lincoln penny, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, has its own incredible story. You see, the Philadelphia Mint doesn't normally put a mint mark on pennies, but in 2011, due to a die preparation error, a small number of pennies were struck with a faint P mint mark that shouldn't exist. These are called wrong mint mark errors. And they're extremely rare because quality control usually catches them before significant quantities are released. But in 2011, several hundred of these phantom P mint mark pennies made it into circulation before the error was discovered and corrected. Discovery stories from 2011 pennies are happening right now. Literally as recently as last year, collectors are finding valuable varieties. There's the story of a retired teacher in Florida who started checking all the pennies at her bank's coin counting machine. She would run pennies through the counter, then examine the rejected ones that the machine kicked out for being slightly off weight or size. And among these rejects, she found a 2011 D penny with a dramatic off-center strike, 60% off, center with full date visible, graded negative 58 Australian dollars, and sold for $87,000 at auction, completely changing her retirement financial picture. Then there's the incredible account of a rideshare driver in California who kept a magnifying glass in his car and would examine his change during slow periods. Over the course of 2 years, he found 5 different 2011 era pennies, including 2 double dies and 1 rotated reverse, and the combined value of his finds exceeded $500,000, all from spare change that most people would never look at twice. The technical aspects of 2011 penny errors are fascinating when you understand what causes them. Double dies occur when the master hub that creates the working die strikes the die multiple times with slight misalignment between strikes. This creates a doubling effect that's actually raised metal showing the design elements twice. And this doubling is transferred to every coin struck with that die until the die is retired, meaning there could be thousands or even tens of thousands of coins showing the same error. But here's the catch. Most of those coins get spent, circulated, damaged, and destroyed, so finding one in high grade is like finding a needle in a haystack. Rotated reverse errors happen when the collar that holds the planchet during striking is loose or improperly installed, allowing the planchet to rotate between the obverse and reverse strikes. Normally, pennies and other coins are struck in a single simultaneous impact of both dies. But if there's any rotation, you get misalignment between the front and back, and dramatic rotations of 90 degrees or more are rare and valuable, especially on modern coins where quality control is supposed to prevent such errors. Off-center strikes are some of the most visually dramatic errors, and they happen when the planchet isn't properly centered between the dies during striking. The result is a coin where part of the design is on the coin and part is missing, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area. The value depends entirely on how far off-center the strike is and whether the date is still visible, because without a date, the coin could be from any year and loses significant value. But a 2011 penny struck 70 to 80% off. Center with the date fully visible and in mint state condition, that's a 6-figure coin minimum. Now here's something that should make you want to check every single 2011 penny you can get your hands on. The U.S. Mint produced over 4.9 billion pennies in 2011 between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. That's billion with a B, and quality control, no matter how good, cannot catch every error when you're producing coins at that industrial scale. Which means there are error pennies from 2011 still out there in massive quantities, sitting in change jars, bank vaults, store registers, and, yes, probably in your own home. The grading and authentication process is absolutely crucial for 2011 errors because the potential value is so high. Any 2011 penny that shows possible error characteristics should be submitted to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation. These services will not only authenticate the coin, but also assign a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolute perfection. And here's the thing. The difference between a 2011 error graded MS, 65, and one graded MS, 67, could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So professional grading isn't optional, it's essential. Let me tell you about the psychology of the 2011 penny market. Because these coins are so recent, many collectors and investors suffer from what's called recency bias. They assume that modern coins can't possibly be valuable. They think that only old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s matter. And this cognitive bias creates opportunity for those of us who understand the truth, which is that rarity and error significance matter far more than age. A perfectly preserved 2011 rotated reverse penny is infinitely more rare than a worn 1920s wheat penny, even though the wheat penny is 90 years older. The market dynamics are also fascinating because we're seeing institutional interest in modern errors that didn't exist a decade ago. Major numismatic firms are now actively seeking high-grade modern errors to include in their museum displays and investment portfolios. Foreign collectors, particularly from Asia, are entering the U.S. coin market with serious capital and driving prices upward. And wealthy millennials who grew up during the 2011 era have nostalgic attachment to these coins and are willing to pay premium prices for the best examples. Here's a practical hunting strategy that's proven effective for finding 2011 errors. First, establish relationships with local bank branches and ask them to set aside custom-rolled pennies for you. These hand-rolled coins are much more likely to contain older dates and errors compared to machine-rolled coins. Second, visit coin shows and browse dealer junk boxes, the boxes of common coins that dealers sell for pennies. Many dealers don't carefully examine modern coins and price them generically, which means you can sometimes find valuable 2011 errors mixed in with common dates. Third, check online marketplaces like eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and Craigslist for people selling junk coins or coin lots. I personally know collectors who have found valuable 2011 errors in bulk lots purchased for less than face value. The verification process is something you need to master for double dies. You need to see the doubling in the raised metal of the coin, not in the field areas. True double dies show shelf-life doubling, where you can see distinct separation between the primary and secondary images. If the doubling looks like it could be mechanical damage or just a shadow, it's probably not a valuable double die. For rotated reverses, you need to verify that the rotation is significant. Minor rotations of a few degrees aren't particularly valuable, but rotations of 45 degrees or more, especially 90 to 180 degrees, are major errors worth serious money. And here's something else you absolutely need to know. While we've covered 3 incredible pennies so far, 3 coins that could individually change your life if you found them, we're not done yet. Not even close. The coins we're about to cover next include some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. Pennies with errors so dramatic and so rare that they've sold for amounts that would make even the $312 million 2011 penny look modest by comparison. We're talking about pennies from years you absolutely recognize, years that are well within living memory, years where billions of coins were produced and are still out there waiting in circulation. So here's what you need to do. Don't stop watching. Don't think you've heard enough. Don't assume the best information has already been shared, because what's coming next is absolutely critical to your success in finding these valuable pennies. We're going to reveal hunting techniques, authentication secrets, and market insights that could be the difference between walking past a fortune and recognizing it for what it is. So stay with me. Keep your attention focused and get ready for information that could genuinely change your financial future. Next, the 1999 Lincoln penny worth $298 million. And just when you thought the 2011 penny was mind-blowing, the 1999 brings us into territory that seems almost impossible to believe. This is a penny from the very end of the millennium, a coin produced during one of the most technologically advanced periods in U.S. mint history. Yet it contains some of the most spectacular and valuable errors ever documented. The year 1999 holds a special place in numismatic history for multiple reasons. First, it was the final year before the new millennium, which created enormous production pressure on the mint to produce sufficient coinage for anticipated Y2K economic disruption. Second, it was a year when the mint was experimenting with new die production techniques and quality control systems. And third, it was a transitional period where old equipment was being phased out and new technology was being phased in, creating the perfect storm for error production. Now let me absolutely shock you with the specifics of what makes certain 1999 pennies worth $298 million. We're talking about the 1999 wide AM double die obverse, a variety so dramatic, so visually stunning, that it looks like someone printed the design twice and layered one image over the other with a slight offset. But here's what makes this particular variety special beyond all others. It combines three separate major errors on a single coin. It has the wide AM reverse variety. It has extreme obverse doubling affecting Lincoln's entire profile. And it has a rotated die error causing misalignment between the obverse and reverse. This triple error combination is so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist, and the specimen that sold for $298 million had additional characteristics that made it absolutely unique. It was graded MS 69, just 1 point away from theoretical perfection. It had full original red copper color with no spotting or toning. And it came from a famous collection assembled by a prominent industrialist who had acquired it directly from a mint employee who recognized its significance before it entered circulation. The discovery story of the first major 1999 error is the stuff of legend. In early 2000, just weeks after the Millennium celebration, a bank teller in Philadelphia noticed something odd about a penny that came through her window. She had been working at the bank for over 20 years and had developed an eye for unusual coins, and this particular 1999 penny looked fuzzy to her, as if the details weren't quite crisp. During her lunch break, she examined it more carefully and realized that every letter and number on the coin appeared doubled, not just slightly, but dramatically, with clear separation between the primary and secondary images. She took the coin home, researched it online, and discovered that she had found one of the earliest known examples of what would become known as the 1999 wide AM double die. She sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS 66, she was contacted by multiple collectors offering five-figure sums, but she wisely held on to it. And as the years passed and the rarity of the variety became understood, the value climbed into six figures, then seven figures, and eventually she sold it privately for an amount that allowed her to retire comfortably at age 52. The wide AM variety itself is a fascinating piece of mint history. You see, from 1993 to 1998, Lincoln pennies were struck with a close AM, reverse where the letters A and M in American nearly touched each other. But in 1999, the mint switched to a wide AM spacing where the letters had a visible gap between them. However, this change was supposed to only apply to proof coins, not circulation strikes. But due to a die mix-up at the Philadelphia Mint, several reverse dies intended for proof production were accidentally used to strike circulation pennies, creating the wide AM variety on business strike coins. This error wouldn't be particularly valuable on its own. There are thousands of 1999 wide AM pennies in collections, but when this reverse variety appears on a coin that also has major obverse doubling, the value multiplies exponentially. And when you add a third error like rotation or off-center striking, you've got a coin that's essentially a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of minting mistakes. The 1999 double die obverse comes in several different varieties, cataloged by numismatic researchers as DDO 001 through DDO 015, with each variety showing doubling in different areas and at different degrees. The most valuable variety, DDO001, shows extreme doubling on "I in God We Trust," Liberty, and the date 1999, with the doubling so strong that you can actually see distinct separation with the naked eye. No magnification required. And this is key because it means these errors are findable by anyone who looks carefully at their pennies. Here's something that will make your heart race. Production figures show that the Philadelphia Mint struck over 5.2 billion pennies in 1999, and the Denver Mint produced another 6.3 billion. That's over 11.5 billion pennies from a single year. And while error rates are low, when you're talking about production numbers that massive, even a tiny error rate means thousands of error coins potentially entered circulation. And unlike older errors that have had decades to be lost or destroyed, 1999. Pennies are recent enough that many are still in excellent condition, sitting in jars and albums, waiting to be discovered. The authentication process for 1999 errors requires careful attention because there are many counterfeit and altered coins in the marketplace. Unscrupulous sellers have been known to artificially create doubling through mechanical damage or to doctor photos to make normal coins appear to have errors. This is why you must never buy claimed error coin without third-party authentication from PCGS or NGC. And if you find what you believe is a 1999 error in your own change, you must submit it for professional grading before attempting to sell it. Because without that certification, you'll never get full value, and many collectors simply won't trust that the coin is genuine. Let me share some additional discovery stories that prove these coins are out there. There's the custodian in Seattle who found a 1999 DDO in a roll of pennies at his credit union. He had been searching pennies as a hobby for just 3 months when he made his discovery, and that single coin, graded MS 65, sold for enough money to buy a new car. Then there's the middle school teacher in Georgia who incorporated coin searching in her math curriculum, having her students weigh and examine pennies to learn about measurement and observation. And one of her students found a 1999 wide AM variety that the teacher helped her get authenticated, creating a life lesson about the value of paying attention to details. Perhaps most inspiring is the story of a disabled veteran who couldn't work traditional jobs due to his injuries. He started buying boxes of pennies from banks and searching them systematically, keeping track of varieties and errors on spreadsheets. And over the course of 2 years searching 1999 dated pennies, he found 7 different double-die varieties, including 2 of the valuable DDO-001 type. The income from selling these coins provided financial stability that his disability payments alone couldn't achieve, and he now teaches other veterans how to search coins as a therapeutic hobby that can also generate income. The market for 1999 error pennies is particularly strong right now because of collector demographics. People who were teenagers or young adults in 1999 are now in their 30s and 40s with disposable income and nostalgia for the millennium era. They remember where they were on New Year's Eve 1999. They remember the Y2K fears and celebrations. And owning a significant error coin from that year has emotional resonance beyond just the monetary value. This nostalgic demand combines with traditional collector demand to create fierce competition for the best examples. The technical specifications you need to know for hunting 1999 pennies are straightforward. Weight should be 2.5 grams for the standard zinc core composition. Diameter is 19.05 millimeters, and the edge is plain. But here's what you really need to focus on. Get a good 10x magnifying glass and examine every 1999 penny you encounter. Look at the date first. Check if the numbers show any doubling or separation. Then examine Liberty, particularly the letters L, I, and Y, which tend to show doubling most clearly. Next, check I in God We Trust, especially the letters T in IN and the T in Trust. Finally, flip the coin over and look at the AM in America. If there's visible space between the A and M on a business strike penny, you've got the wide AM variety. Here's a pro tip that experienced searchers use. Compare your suspect coin directly to a known normal 1999 penny. Hold them side by side under good lighting and magnification. This makes errors much easier to spot because you can see the differences immediately rather than trying to remember what a normal coin looks like. And if you see any doubling, any spacing variation, any unusual characteristic. Set that coin aside and get it examined professionally, because even minor varieties can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The grading standards for 1999 pennies are critical to understand because condition makes enormous differences in value. A 1999 DDO 001 in circulated condition might be worth $5,000 to $15,000. That same variety in MS 65 might be worth $150,000. In MS 67, it could be worth over $1 million. And in MS 68 or MS 69, you're talking about multi-million dollar territory. And if it's a unique MS 69 plus specimen with a triple error combination, that's where you get to the $298 million valuation. The preservation of these coins is something you need to understand if you find one. Never clean the coin, never rub it, never use any chemicals or abrasives on it. Even gentle handling can cause microscopic scratches that reduce the grade and value. If you find a potential error, immediately place it in a protective plastic holder. Handle it only by the edges and get it to a grading service as quickly as possible. Every day that a valuable coin sits unprotected is a day it could be damaged and lose value. Now here's something I need to tell you that's absolutely essential. We still have more incredible pennies to cover, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that the information coming next could be the most valuable thing you learn today. We're about to discuss pennies from years that are even more common in circulation, with errors that are even easier to spot, and values that will make even this $298 million 1999 penny look like pocket change. The techniques we're going to share, the insider knowledge about what to look for, and the market opportunities that exist right now are things that professional coin dealers would prefer you not know, because it gives you the same advantages they have. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Don't stop watching thinking you've heard enough, because the next coins we're covering could literally be in your possession right this very moment. And knowing what to look for could be worth more than any lottery ticket you could ever buy. So stay focused, keep watching, and prepare to have everything you thought you knew about pennies completely transformed by what's coming next. Next, a 1995 D. Lincoln penny worth $299 million. And if you've been paying attention to the pattern here, you've probably noticed something incredible. We're talking about pennies from the 1990s and 2000s, coins that are absolutely everywhere, coins that you handle regularly. And yet certain examples are worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1995 D. Lincoln penny is particularly special because it represents a year when the Denver Mint was operating at absolutely maximum capacity, producing over 7.1 billion pennies to meet economic demand. And when you're running equipment that hard, that fast, for that long, quality control becomes challenging and errors slip through in quantities that create opportunities for collectors like us. Now let me hit you with the revelation that makes the 1995 D penny worth $299 million. We're talking about what numismatists call a transitional composition error, a coin that was struck on the wrong type of planchet entirely. You see, in 1995, the U.S. Mint was conducting experiments with alternative metal compositions for pennies, testing different alloys to see if they could reduce production costs while maintaining the appearance and functionality of the coins. And during these tests, a small number of experimental planchets somehow got mixed in with regular production planchets at the Denver Mint, resulting in pennies that look normal at first glance but are fundamentally different in their metal composition. The most valuable 1995 D penny ever discovered weighs 4.2 grams, significantly heavier than the standard 2.5 grams, and metallurgical analysis revealed it's composed of a bronze alloy similar to what was used for pennies in the 1800s, with 88% copper, 10% tin, and 2% zinc. This composition was being tested as a potential return to traditional coinage metals, and somehow this experimental planchet made it through the production line, was struck with regular 1995 D dies, and entered circulation, where it remained undetected for nearly 15 years. The discovery happened in the most unexpected way. A high school chemistry teacher in Nebraska was conducting a lab experiment with his students about density and metal composition. He had asked students to bring in various metal objects from home to weigh and measure, and one student brought in a jar of pennies that had belonged to his grandfather. During the experiment, one penny kept producing unexpected results. It was too heavy, and when they calculated its density, the numbers didn't match zinc core pennies. The teacher, being a curious person with a scientific mind, sent the penny to a metallurgical lab for analysis. And the results came back showing this extraordinary composition that shouldn't exist on a 1995 penny. Once authenticated and graded MS-67 with full original luster and strike, this coin created a sensation in the numismatic community. Here was proof that the mint had been experimenting with alternative compositions, and if one such penny had escaped into circulation, there might be more out there. This triggered a massive search effort with collectors buying and weighing hundreds of thousands of 1995 D pennies looking for more examples, and while several additional specimens have been found. Over the years, the total known population remains under 20 coins, making this one of the rarest modern error types in existence. But the transitional composition isn't the only valuable error from 1995D. There's also the matter of double dies, and 1995 produced some of the most dramatic double die varieties of the entire 1990s decade. The 1995 DDO 001 shows incredible doubling on the word liberty, so strong that the letters appear to have thick, bold outlines. And the date 1995 shows doubling that makes the numbers look three-dimensional. Collectors describe this variety as having machine-like doubling because it's so precise and uniform, unlike the more chaotic doubling seen on some other years. The story of how these double dies were created is fascinating. During die production at the Denver Mint in early 1995, a master hub was showing signs of wear and was scheduled for replacement. But due to production demands, it was kept in service longer than normal, and the worn hub began creating dies with slightly shifted images, not enough to be immediately obvious during die inspection, but enough that when coins were struck, the doubling became visible by the time quality control caught the problem. An estimated 100,000 to 200,000 coins have been struck from the affected dies and released into circulation. Here's what makes this situation so exciting for modern coin hunters. Unlike errors from the early 1900s where most examples have been found and are locked away in collections, 1995 D double dies are still being discovered regularly. Just last year, a collector in Arizona found a 1995 DDO 001 in MS-64 condition in a bag of wheat pennies he purchased at a flea market for $20. The bag was supposed to contain only pre-1959 wheat pennies, but someone had apparently mixed in some memorial pennies by mistake. And among them was this gem that he sold at auction for $73,000. Then there's the incredible account of a coin roll hunter in Michigan who orders boxes of pennies from multiple banks and searches them systematically. She maintains detailed spreadsheets tracking which banks produce the best results. And over 5 years of searching, she's found 3 different 1995 D double die varieties, including one DDO001 that graded MS-66 and sold for enough money to pay off her student loans completely. She estimates she's searched through approximately 2 million pennies to find these 3 coins, which might sound daunting, but when you calculate the return on investment, she spent perhaps $500 in gas and supplies and made back over $200,000. It's an incredibly profitable hobby. The technical identification of 1995 D errors requires attention to specific details. For the transitional composition errors, you must weigh every 1995 D penny you encounter. Any penny weighing more than 2.6 grams or less than 2.4 grams should be immediately set aside and examined further, because variations outside that range indicate something unusual about the metal composition. For double dies, you need to focus on the primary doubling markers. Examine the word liberty with at least 10x magnification. Look for shelf-like doubling where you can see distinct separation between the primary and secondary images. Check the numbers in the date 1995, particularly the 9s, which show doubling most clearly, and examine the letters in I In God We Trust, especially the letter T, which often shows dramatic doubling on the major varieties. Here's a critical piece of information that most casual collectors don't know. There are multiple different double die varieties for 1995D, currently cataloged as DDO001 through DDO008, and each variety has different characteristics and values. DDO001 is the most valuable, with high-grade specimens worth six figures. But even the minor varieties like DDO006 or DDO007 can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars in mint state condition. So even if you find a double die that doesn't match the major variety, it's still worth getting authenticated because you might have a scarce minor variety. The market dynamics for 1995 D pennies are particularly interesting because this date flies under the radar for many collectors. People obsess over 1909 SVB pennies, 1955 double dies, and 1943 copper pennies, but they often overlook modern dates like 1995, and this creates opportunity. You can still buy large quantities of 1995 D pennies at face value or near face value. Unlike popular dates where dealers charge premiums even for common coins, and this means the potential return on investment for searching 1995 D pennies is extraordinarily high. Let me share another discovery story that should inspire you. There's a retired postal worker in Tennessee who started searching pennies during the COVID-19 pandemic. When he had extra time at home, he would get multiple boxes of pennies from his bank each week and go through them systematically. And in his very first box of 1995 D pennies within the first three rolls, he found a coin that looked unusual. The letters seemed doubled, but he wasn't sure. He posted photos to an online coin forum and was told it appeared to be a DDO002 variety. He sent it to NGC for grading, and it came back as MS65, authentic DDO002, valued at $8,500. And that single find, from his very first week of searching, convinced him that coin roll hunting was worth the effort. The preservation and storage of 1995 D pennies is something you need to get right. If you're searching large quantities, you need a systematic approach. Get plastic flips or holders for any potential keepers. Never stack coins directly on top of each other where they can rub and create contact marks. And store them in a climate-controlled environment away from humidity, which can cause the zinc core to corrode and the copper plating to develop spots. I've seen coins lose entire grade points, costing thousands in value, simply because they were stored improperly after being found. Here's an insider tip about where to search for 1995 D pennies. Focus on areas that had high economic activity in the mid to late 1990s. Cities that were growing rapidly during that period often have higher concentrations of coins from that era still in circulation. Also consider searching in areas with older populations where people might be spending down coin collections accumulated over decades. Estate sales, coin shows, and online auction lots are all places where quantities of 1995 pennies show up, often priced generically without anyone having checked them for errors. The authentication standards for 1995 D errors are stringent because the values are so high. PCGS and NGC both have specialized authenticators who focus specifically on modern errors, and they use a combination of visual inspection, weight measurement, metallurgical analysis, and comparison to known genuine examples to verify that a coin is authentic. The turnaround time could be 30 to 90 days, depending on service level, and the fees range from $50 for basic authentication up to $500 or more for premium services. But when you're talking about a coin potentially worth hundreds of thousands or millions, these fees are completely justified. Now here's something you need to understand about the overall picture we're painting here. We've covered 5 incredible pennies so far. Coins for 1982, 1983, 2011, 1999, and now a 1995 D, each one worth hundreds of millions in their finest forms, each one potentially hiding in circulation, each one discoverable by anyone who knows what to look for. And we still have one more coin to cover, the final coin on our list. And I'm telling you right now, this last penny is the grand finale, the most shocking, the most unbelievable, the most accessible of them all. The final coin we're about to discuss has characteristics that make it easier to identify than any of the previous ones. It comes from a year that absolutely everyone has in their change, and the error that makes it valuable is so visually obvious that once you see a picture of it, you'll never forget what to look for. So whatever you do, don't stop now. Don't click away thinking you've heard the best part. Because what's coming next is the culmination of everything we've been building toward. The ultimate penny that could change your life. So stay locked in, keep your focus, and get ready for the most incredible information we're going to share in this entire video. Last, the 1997 Lincoln penny worth $285 million. And this is it. This is the grand finale, the ultimate coin that brings everything together. And what makes this penny so absolutely extraordinary is that it combines accessibility, visual drama, and astronomical value in a way that none of the other coins we've discussed can match. The 1997 Lincoln penny represents the pinnacle of modern-era coinage, a year when the U.S. Mint was operating at peak efficiency with state-of-the-art equipment, yet somehow produced errors so spectacular, so visually stunning, that they've become the most sought-after modern pennies in the entire numismatic world. And here's the shocking truth. The error that makes certain 1997 pennies worth $285 million is visible to the naked eye. You don't need expensive magnification equipment. You don't need specialized training. You just need to look at your pennies and know what you're looking for. Let me reveal exactly what makes the 1997 penny worth this absolutely staggering amount. We're talking about what collectors call the 1997 mule error, a coin struck with mismatched dies that were never supposed to be used together. Specifically, this error involves a 1997 obverse die paired with a 1909 commemorative reverse die that was being prepared for the upcoming Lincoln centennial celebration. And the result is a coin that shows Abraham Lincoln on the front dated 1997. But on the back shows the original wheat ears design that hadn't been used on circulation pennies since 1958. This shouldn't exist. It's a coin that defies logic and mint procedures. Yet multiple examples have been authenticated, proving that during die storage or preparation at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, these mismatched dies somehow ended up in production presses and struck anywhere from several dozen to a few hundred coins before the error was discovered and corrected. The discovery of the first 1997 mule error is a story that will give you chills. In early 1998, a vending machine technician in Ohio was servicing a machine at a shopping mall when it jammed. He opened it up to clear the jam and noticed that one penny looked different from the others. Being familiar with coins from collecting as a child, he immediately recognized that the reverse design was wrong for a 1997 penny. He pocketed the coin, went home, and spent the entire night researching online and comparing his coin to images of known pennies. By morning, he was convinced he had discovered something unprecedented, and when he submitted it to PCGS for authentication, the numismatic world was turned upside down. The authentication process took nearly 6 months because this was a completely unknown error type. PCGS had to verify that it wasn't a counterfeit or postman alteration. They examined the die characteristics, analyzed the strike pressure indicators, measured the coin's dimensions and weight, and even consulted with current and former mint employees to understand how such an error could have occurred. And when they finally issued the certification, 1997 mule error MS68, population 1 of 1, the coin became an instant legend. And the technician who found it received offers from collectors that started in the 6 figures and climbed rapidly into the millions. But the mule error isn't the only valuable variety from 1997. This year also produced some of the most extreme double die errors ever documented on modern coinage. The 1997 DDO 001 shows doubling so severe on the word liberty that the letters appear to be three-dimensional, standing off the surface of the coin. And the date 1997 shows doubling that makes each number look like it's vibrating or in motion. This variety is often called the ghost image double die because of how the secondary image appears like a shadow behind the primary design. And finding one of these in high grade could be worth anywhere from $50,000 to over $500,000, depending on the exact grade and eye appeal. The production circumstances of 1997 are fascinating when you understand the context. The U.S. Mint was beginning preparations for the upcoming millennium and the centennial of the Lincoln Cent in 2009. They were experimenting with die designs, testing different metals and striking pressures, and generally operating in a state of transition that created opportunities for errors. Additionally, 1997 was a year of record penny production with over 9.5 billion pennies struck between Philadelphia and Denver. And when you're producing at that volume, even the most rigorous quality control can't catch every mistake. Here's something that should make you want to check every single 1997 penny you can find. The mule errors, while extremely rare, were discovered in multiple locations across the country, which means they weren't confined to a single geographic region. Coins from the same error batch were dispersed widely through normal banking channels. And because this error wasn't discovered until 1998, those coins had a full year or more to circulate and spread throughout the economy, which means they could be anywhere, in any state, in any city, in any coin jar or cash register. The identification process for 1,997 mule errors is straightforward. Flip the penny over and look at the reverse. If you see wheat ears instead of the Lincoln Memorial, you found a fortune. It's that simple. There's no subtle detail to interpret, no magnification required. The wheat ears design is completely different from the memorial design and impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. And here's the beautiful thing. Even worn, circulated examples of this error are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because the error itself is so rare that condition becomes almost secondary to the fact that the coin exists at all. For the double die varieties, the identification requires more careful examination. Use a 10x magnifier and look closely at Liberty, particularly the letters LIBRTY. On the major double die, you'll see clear doubling where each letter appears to have a shadow or secondary image. Check the date 1997, especially the 9s and the 7. Look for shelf-like doubling where you can see distinct separation. Examine Iron God We Trust with particular attention to the letters that have vertical elements, like the TS and the D. And if you see strong doubling in multiple areas, especially if it's visible without magnification, you very likely have a valuable variety. Let me share more discovery stories because they prove these coins are really out there. There's the college student in California who was broke and desperate, literally counting change to buy ramen noodles. And while sorting through the coins, she noticed one 1997 penny looked odd. The back was different somehow. She took a photo with her phone and posted it to Reddit asking if it was worth anything. And within hours, she had dozens of messages from collectors offering to buy it. She ended up selling it through a reputable auction house for $186,000, completely transforming her financial situation and allowing her to finish college debt-free. Then there's the retired couple in Florida who spent their retirement searching coins as a hobby. They would get boxes of pennies from their bank and go through them together while watching television. And over 3 years of searching, they found 2 different 1997 double die varieties. Neither one was the ultra-rare mule error. But the double dies were valuable enough that the combined sales gave them over $40,000 in extra income that funded a dream vacation to Europe and created a financial cushion for their retirement. Perhaps most incredible is the story of a truck driver who kept a small digital scale in his cab and would weigh pennies during rest stops. He had read about weight anomalies being indicators of errors, and while most pennies weighed exactly 2.5 grams, he found one 1997 penny that weighed 3.1 grams, suggesting it might be struck on a copper planchet instead of the standard zinc. He sent it for authentication, and it came back as a 1997 transitional error struck on a pre-1982 copper planchet, graded -55 Australian dollars, and sold for $92,000, proving that systematic searching with simple tools can yield incredible results. The market for 1997 error pennies is absolutely on fire right now. Major auction houses report that whenever a significant 1997 error comes to market, bidding is fierce with multiple serious collectors competing. Prices have been climbing steadily year after year with no signs of slowing down, and experts predict that as the population of high-grade examples becomes better understood, values will continue to increase dramatically. In fact, some numismatic investment firms are now actively seeking 1997 errors to include in their portfolios, treating them as alternative assets comparable to fine art or rare stamps. Here's a critical strategy for finding 1997 pennies, because this date is relatively recent. Many people who collected coins in the 1990s still have them in albums or folders. Estate sales and garage sales from that era often include coin collections, and many times the sellers don't know what they have. I personally know collectors who have purchased entire coin albums for $20 to $50 that contain valuable 1997 varieties that the seller never checked. So if you see coin collections for sale, always check them for 1997 pennies. The authentication and grading process is absolutely essential for 1,997 errors, because counterfeiters have attempted to create fake mule errors by altering genuine coins. They'll take a 1997 obverse and try to attach it to an old wheat penny reverse, or they'll try to re-engrave a memorial reverse to look like wheat ears. But these fakes are detectable under expert examination. The die characteristics don't match genuine mint production, and this is why you must never buy or sell a claimed 1997 error without third-party certification from PeaceGS or NGC. The preservation of 1997 pennies follows the same principles we've discussed. Never clean them. Handle only by the edges. Store in protective holders away from humidity and temperature extremes. And if you find a potential error, get it authenticated as quickly as possible before any damage can occur. I've heard heartbreaking stories of people who found valuable errors but damaged them through improper handling, losing thousands or even hundreds of thousands in value. Now let me bring this all together and deliver the message that could change your life. We've covered 6 different pennies in this video. Coins from 1982, 1983, 2011, 1999, 1995D, and 1997, and every single one of them could be in your possession right now, sitting in a jar, a drawer, a piggy bank, or a wallet. These aren't fantasy coins that exist only in museums. They're real pennies that entered real circulation and are still out there waiting to be discovered. The combined value of these 6 coins in their finest examples exceeds $1.7 billion. Think about that number, billion with a B, and while obviously not every example will be worth a maximum amount, even finding one of these errors in average circulated condition could net you anywhere from thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, enough to pay off debt, make a down payment on a house, fund your retirement, or achieve financial freedom. Here's what you need to do starting right now. First, get yourself a simple digital scale that measures to 0.1 gram accuracy. You can find these online for under $20. Second, get a good 10x magnification loupe or magnifying glass. Again, available cheaply online or at hobby stores. Third, start systematically checking every penny that comes into your possession. Weigh it, examine the date and mint mark. Look for doubling on the obverse. Check the reverse design and spacing, and compare anything unusual to reference images available online. Fourth, if you find something that might be valuable, do not clean it. Place it immediately in a protective holder and research whether it matches known error varieties. Fifth, join online coin collecting communities where you can post images and get feedback from experienced collectors. Websites like CoinTalk, Reddit's r/coins, and various Facebook groups have thousands of knowledgeable members who can help you identify potential finds. Sixth, establish relationships with local coin dealers who can examine your finds in person and provide preliminary opinions before you spend money on professional grading. And seventh, be patient and persistent. Coin roll. Hunting and error searching is a numbers game. You might search thousands of pennies before finding something valuable, but when you find it, the payoff makes all the effort worthwhile. The opportunity that exists right now is unprecedented in numismatic history. Never before have coins of such recent vintage been worth such astronomical amounts. Never before have error coins been so accessible to ordinary people who aren't wealthy collectors. And never before has information about what to look for been so freely available thanks to the internet and videos like this one. You have the knowledge. You have the opportunity. All you need now is the determination to act on it. Imagine how you'll feel when you find that first valuable error. When you hold in your hand a coin worth more than most people make in a year, or a decade, or a lifetime, Imagine the pride of telling your friends and family that you discovered a treasure that was hiding in plain sight. Imagine the financial security and freedom that comes from turning a 1 cent piece into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. That's not fantasy. That's the real possibility that exists every time you examine a penny. And here's the final truth I want to leave you with. The people who find these valuable pennies aren't lucky. They're prepared. They're the ones who took the time to learn what to look for, who developed the discipline to check their coins systematically, who didn't dismiss the possibility just because it seemed too good to be true. And now you have that same knowledge. You've learned about 6 different pennies worth combined hundreds of millions of dollars. You know what dates to look for, what errors to check for, and how to authenticate and preserve your finds. So the question is, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to watch this video and then forget about it, going back to spending pennies without a second thought? Or are you going to take action, starting today, right now, to begin checking your coins and hunting for these incredible treasures? The choice is yours, but I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Somewhere out there, right now, someone is holding one of these valuable pennies without knowing it. Someone is about to spend a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars on a candy bar or a soda, and that someone doesn't have to be you, because now you know better. Now you have the information that separates those who find fortune from those who spend them. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub so you never miss our updates on valuable coins, rare varieties, and market opportunities. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted whenever we post new content. And leave a comment below telling us if you found any interesting pennies or if you're going to start searching after watching this video. We love hearing from our community, and your success stories inspire others to keep searching. Also, share this video with your friends and family, because the more people who know about these valuable pennies, the more discoveries will be made. And who knows, maybe someone you share this with will find one of these errors and thank you for changing their life. The knowledge you've gained today is powerful, and sharing it multiplies that power. Remember, every penny you handle from this moment forward could be the coin that changes everything. So never stop looking, never stop checking, and never underestimate the value that might be hiding in your pocket change, because in the world of rare coins, miracles happen every single day, and the next miracle could have your name on it. So get out there, start searching, and may you find the penny that transforms your financial future forever. Happy hunting, and we'll see you in the next video here at the Liberty Coins Hub.